Oh yeah, lads.
That one might have made a little
Lads, I'm nearly 30 and I'm still using Play-Doh in my everyday life. My God. Lads, what is the crack? We're back with the Renault Master van build. We're gonna get stuck into it straight away today because I want to get a few things done. As you can see, I already have one of the wall structure or the wall framing up. This is for the bed, so I went with a 6x1 just because I'll explain that in a second. Let me just get warm because it is freezing today. Right, so like I said, I've already put this up. Number one, to figure out how to do it properly and to kind of practice before showing you on camera, because I have to do the other side and all the rest of the walls. Another reason why I wanted to put this up is so I can leave tools and stuff that I need a lot on top of here. Just trying to make my life easier because I'm working from my driveway and I don't have a workshop or a garage that I can leave stuff around. That's how it's looking. I used bolts and I'll explain all of this later, but it's looking well, really strong, and I'm pretty confident that I'm able to show you properly how to do it as opposed to just leaving the camera rolling and figuring it out as I go. It makes my life easier when I'm editing because I was editing through hours of footage where I was just standing there trying to figure out how to do things. Alright, so we've insulated the edge of the floor and we're going to frame the walls today, but I'll rewrite all this. Just a few things for this episode that I'm pretty sure we'll be able to get done today. So frame the walls, install the bed beams onto that panel there, fill the cavities with fleece. So anywhere where there's holes and cavities like here, I'm just stuff that with fleece. And then glue the fleece to the walls anywhere where there's the insulation that's already there. I'm going to glue it to that and rivet knot the walls, and that's what we'll do first. Now I've done this side already and just to save me a bit of time. I still need to do the other side, but I picked this up off of Amazon, and everything that I use in each video is always in the description if you want to check that out. But pretty easy tool to use. You just get this kind of, it's like a big shears. You have a little screw at the top where you attach your, where are they? Where you screw on these rivets. It comes with all the different screw sizes for different like M6, M8, M10, M5, whatever you want to use. This is M6. All you do is open up the gun, screw this on top, and then you just squeeze it down. So wherever these two ridges are, just imagine your metal panel is between those two and it just sandwiches the metal panel and it stays in place like that. Very easy to use. You get your M6 bolts, it just screws into it just like that. And before we can use that rivet gun, we need to make holes using this step drill bit to kind of make these holes bigger. Now this is just the way that I'm doing it, and this is the way that I'm installing the timber onto the wall. You can literally screw directly into the van if you wanted to, but this is the way I'm doing it. So I'm just taking the holes that's already existing in the van and just making them bigger using this step drill bit. And then grabbing the rivets that I want to use. This is M8. That is the perfect size. You don't want to make a hole that's too big, so then this won't really catch properly. And once you've made your hole, grab a bit of rust prevention spray paint. Grab your rivet nut gun, open it up, and this is an optional step. One of the main issues with rivet nuts is that if you don't put it in tight enough, or if you're screwing your bolts in and you screw them in too tight, these rivet nuts will start to spin once they're in here, and it's really hard to get it out. You have to use like a angle grinder or like a multi-tool to cut it off and then redo it, and that's just a pain in the arse. So an extra step that I've been doing, and I've done a full side and none of them have failed, is using this Loctite thread locker just around the rivet. You don't have to put too much, just a little bit, and that just helps stop it from spinning in place. And this thread locker is really good. Put it on all of the bolts as well. It just stops that rotational force and for it to come loose. Pop it in just like that, and then you squeeze. That's it. You just unscrew it, but I found a little trick. Take a 14mm socket. You do it in 2 seconds. That is the rivet in place, and the thread locker is kind of seeping out a little bit, which is fine. And then you just take your M8 bolt, because this is an M8 rivet, and all you have to do is screw it in really easy. So I'm just going to do that for all of these holes that's already in the van. The recommendation is to put a bolt every 300 to 500 millimeters. So that's what I'm going to do. Once you have all of your rivets in, or your rivet nuts, I'll show you how to line them up. First we need to cut a board that is that length, 198 centimeters. Let's see if this fits. Lovely. Happy days. Right. Because I've already done this side, I need to have it at the same height. Now when you're doing it for the first time and you're installing, you don't need to do this part, but because this is already installed, it needs to match up. So I'm just gonna measure from the floor to the bottom of this, which is around 77. Double check this side. Yeah, 77. Because our board is gonna sit at the end here, I'm able to mark from the bottom of this around there. If it sits there, we should be happy days. Okay, so I don't know if you've seen this in the background of some of the shots, but I have some Play-Doh to line up where to drill the holes in your wood so that it lines up with your, what are they called again? Rivet nuts. You could measure from the floor to the center of the rivet. That's a lot of measuring. This is easier and it's a lot more fun. Take just a little bit of Play-Doh. You don't need too much. You can use blue tack as well. And you're just gonna line it up roughly where it would be sitting. Roughly just there. Once it's on your wood, and remember I made a little mark at the bottom for where the bottom of the wood should be sitting, so I'm just going to line it up with that and then press into the wood, take it out, and you should be left with a little nipple is what I like to call it, and then you just drill through that, and that's exactly where your bolt should be. That's it. You just take out the Play-Doh, take a bigger drill bit. You want your bolts to be flush with the wood. Right now it's just sitting on top of it. So to countersink the bolts, you grab a Forstner bit. This is 20 millimeters, and it just makes a little hole in the wood so that when you put your bolts in, it'll go below that surface and it's all flush. It's easier to see what I'm doing, but that's what it's called, a Forstner bit. And just like that, nice and flush with the wood. So once you have that bolt and a washer, let's line it up. There we go. Tighten it now. Make sure to control how fast you're tightening the bolt, because if you go full power straight away, you might spin and dislodge that rivet, which you don't want to happen. Because it is a bitch to get out. Remember, before we put this in, we measured 77 centimeters or 770 millimeters from the floor to the bottom of that wood. Let's just double check. Bang on. Now that we know that that's the perfect height, 77, we're just going to measure 77 from the bottom, right about there. Then we just take our very scientific measuring tool, roughly line up where that one will be again. As I'm nearly 30 and I'm still using Play-Doh in my everyday life. My God. Okay, once we have that little nipple. All we have to do is just drill through that. And make sure to countersink your holes as well on the right side. Don't countersink it on the opposite side. Lovely stuff. Okay. Just like that. Now, so the reason why I haven't fully tightened this together is because we still need to mark where the rest of that is going to go. Same again, but this time pull the board out a little bit, just like that. So you have access to the back and you can put your markers or your Play-Doh. I'm going to go finish off the top, well, the last two roof battens, and he's going to do the nippling.
The boobies.
Yeah, the boobies. Oh, check your titties.
Titties!
Got them?
Yep. Move. That was a nice one.
That was a nice one.
Shout out to Zita, my nail gal. They're lovely. I want John.
Now,
No.
to see if it's all lined up.
You have no faith in me. Right, lads. So,
What are we doing?
watch yourself there now. Mirror on the wall.
Here we go.
Gorgeous.
Going well so far.
If you want the job done, call me. Tell you, this fella's flapping about in here.
Yeah.
I come in.
I'm actually just on my phone the entire time, and Annie comes in and does all of this work.
Yeah.
I'll tell you what. Oh, the vans are rocking.
It's just me knocking.
Look at this, the trigger control is exceptional.
You know what? That one might have made a little British. 10 hours later.
She wanted me to show you her work. Look at this. Look at that.
Yeah.
She is sturdy. Happy days.
I could do anything.
Should be 77-ish.
From the top. Bang on 77, y'all.
Oh.
I'm just that good.
Now, two side ones in. So they're just temporarily screwed on for now because we need to put a bit of Sikaflex behind that. And I might do some M6 bolts just underneath, just so, because it's kind of flapping about like that. It is still sturdy now, to be fair, but just a couple of bolts there just to hold the bottom bit in place. Now we have to do the top one.
Take that over there. It's not straight either.
You put.
Look at this man. 199.
It's time to get rid of the lights that are in the van. I got rid of the back one, which was over here. Really easy to do. All you'd need is a screwdriver with a flat head, wedge it behind and just pop it out. Now you can cut these wires and wire up your lights so that whenever you open your van door your lights will turn on as well. So I'm just going to hide that back here for now. I'm actually going to mark with some masking tape so I know what that's for, because once we start doing our wiring for our electrics, which is next pretty much, you want to know exactly what all of these do. I'm just about to put on the back roof batten, or the frame of the roof. So it's going to sit like that, so I've kind of scribed it out so that it kind of makes up for these ridges and all the high and low parts of the roof. But this thing is in the way. If I can't move it and reroute it all the way around, I might have to go down into here. I've had to follow all the way through, go down here, unplug all of these, and go back in here, unplug that, unplug the one up here. Lots of unplugging to do. So that's the bit of timber at the back in. I couldn't move this cable at all, so what I've done is I cut the timber in 2 sections. The cable just sits in nicely in between the two. So, and then I'll just cover that up whenever our roof goes in. Time to install these windows. So what I have to do first is create a frame for the inner edge, and I've actually gone ahead and done that to save me a bit of time. Well, I thought I was saving a bit of time. So this is that frame. Fits absolutely perfectly around the window, but there's a problem, not a major problem, and that's mainly the reason why I have all of this wood here. I just went up and got just some more wood that I can use. I don't know if you can see that, but this wood is not thick enough for the window, and for this specific type of window you need the wood to be thicker than the window itself. So I grabbed some 2x2s. This is just a 2x1, so it'll be a lot thicker and it'll be perfect. So I'm gonna have to redo this again. New day, the weather is really dry. It's actually pretty good. So I'm gonna install the bunk and the side window. And the last thing that I showed you, I think, was I had to make a new frame because the last frame that I made was not thick enough. So this is the new frame. It's made from a 2x2, and I've actually, I don't know if you can see that, I've planed a curve onto the wood, and I'm going to route out the edges to make it a bit more smooth so that no sharp metal edges are pressing against this metal panel here. But it fits perfectly to the curvature of the van. So this is how I managed to get the curve of the van and transferred it to the frame, the wooden frame that I made for the window. Just got a scrap piece of wood that I can just rest against a portion of the van that's curved. I knew roughly where the window was gonna go. It was gonna sit a little bit higher, and I also got this tracer tool, which is a scribing tool. This is brilliant. You can turn it into a compass. Really, really handy. So I just placed the scrap piece of wood onto the metal panel. Really easy to use. You just trace it down just like that, and that's it. You just cut that line that you've made with a jigsaw and then use this as your template. Here's one I made earlier. And it's nice and flush to the van. I've already marked out my cut line. Now I need to put a curve into this. You do not want to cut this square because the window itself is rounded. So if you cut it square, you're going to have a big gaping hole in the corners. But that's it. I also use an angle grinder to take off this kind of support and strut. Again, I have a full video on how I installed these two back windows. Same process for that. Just cut those off and make sure that you're not cutting through that metal panel. And because I made a wider frame, these little brackets will pull the wood frame that you make into the window and sandwiches the metal panel so that it stays on. And they give you screws with it, very, very small. So I've had to go to Chadwick's and grab longer screws. So these are 20 mil screws, and they're flat heads as well. If you're making a thicker border like I am, you'll need longer screws. I just need to put some plastic around the place so that no metal shavings and stuff creep into any of the cracks or crevices, because those will flash rust. I need to do the same on the outside, and we'll start cutting out the window. So this window installation is a little bit awkward and a lot more detailed, so bear with me as I try and do a voiceover to explain everything. One of the best prep advice I could give you is to seal off all of your trims, because the metal shavings that you cut will somehow manage to find its way into these trims. So the first thing to do is to get the center point of the rough template that we have inside the van. So I just took a meter stick or anything that has a straight edge, joined those two corners and made a line somewhere around the middle. Did the same for the opposite side, and wherever these two meet is your center point, and this will serve as a guide for the outside of the van. Like I said, this is an awkward type of hole to cut, so I'm going to triple check, quadruple check everything, and I'm going to do that a lot during this installation. And once I'm happy that this is my center, I'll just take a nail and a hammer and punch out the center point so that our drill bit doesn't start sliding all over the shop. Then just drill this out with a small drill bit, and this will act as a reference point to transfer your template to the outside of the panel. And like any sane person, I want this window to be parallel with the lines in the van, so using the top of this panel as my reference, I measured the distance to the hole we've just drilled out. I transferred that measurement to the right side, made a point, and using the exact same measurement, transferred it to the left side. So that when I join these 2 points, it'll give me the center line of our template, and if you've done this right, the hole that you've just drilled out will sit right in the middle of this line. Again, I'm just double checking that the center line that I've just made is parallel to the lines of the van. Once I was happy enough that my center line is parallel with the lines in the van, I took the longest edge of our window, which is 818 millimeters, and divided that by 2, which gave me 409 millimeters. And I used this to measure 409 mil from the center hole that we've drilled out to the left of this center line, and I'm going to call this point A, and did the same for the right side, and I'm going to call this point B. And if you double check the distance between point A and point B, this should give you 818 mil. But a masking tape here so I can draw cleaner lines. I took another reference point at the end of the panel and measured to point A. Took that measurement and transferred it above and below this center line to give me 2 points, and I'm going to call these points C and D. So that when you join these 2 points together, it'll give you one edge of your template that's parallel to the vertical lines in the van. I did the exact same thing for the other side using the other end of the panel as my reference point. Now we should have 2 vertical lines that are both parallel to the lines in the van, and the distance between these 2 lines is exactly 818 mil. Again, I'm just doing my double, triple and quadruple checks to make sure that the distance between these 2 lines are the exact same no matter where I check it from. Now that we have the length of the hole that we're going to cut, it's time to get the shorter side, which for this window is 315. So I halved this as well, and it gave me 157.5 mil, which is an uneven number. So I rounded down to 157 mil when I measured from our center line up, and I did that on both sides, connected the 2 lines together, and then rounded up to 158 mil when I measured from the center line down. Did that on the opposite side, connected those 2 lines together. And now we have our 818 mil by 315 mil box that we're going to cut out. I know there's a load of calculations and measurements here, so hopefully I've explained it well enough. If you have any questions or any doubts, leave them in the comments below. Now the last step before we start cutting is trying to get this round edge of the windows onto the template that we're making on the van. For this, I put the wooden frame around our window, eyeballed roughly where the curved edge of this window ended, and I marked this out on the frame. And the distance where we've just marked out on the wood to the corner is the exact radius that we need to use. So I used the scribing tool that I showed you earlier, turned it into a compass and set it to this radius, which was roughly 87 mil. Then I placed my compass, which is set at 87 mil, placed it on the corner of our template on the van, intersected the 2 lines, and then moved my compass to where these intersections are and made my mark. And this gave me the center of our circle that we're going to make to get the rounded edge of our corners. It sounds so much more complicated than it actually is. It was so simple, and I just did this for every single corner. And then I did my double and triple checks with the wooden frame and made sure that the window will still fit into this. And once I was happy enough with that, it's finally time to start cutting. So I drilled out a few holes around the corners here, then used a step drill bit to make these holes bigger so that my jigsaw blade would fit. Masking tape the area to protect the paintwork of the van, and I started drilling out the hole. I actually flew through this because this is the 4th hole I think that we've made in the van. So the actual cutting part was so straightforward. It was trying to get this template that was an absolute ball ache. And I'm putting a lot of masking tape where I've just cut to reinforce the panel and stop it vibrating. But after a little while we have another hole in Morrison. And I'll tell you what lads, it never gets easier seeing massive holes in the van that you've just cut out. And this one was particularly sketchy because the light was going, I was working for my driveway. So after filing down the sharp metal edges with the angle grinder and a sanding pad, I rounded off the sharp corners on our wooden frame using a router. And massive shout out to Dwayne for showing me how to use this because I hadn't a clue. But the sun went down and it got dark awful fast, so a bit of panic started kicking in. I rust protected all of the exposed metal edges that we've just cut out. Dry fitted our window one last time to make sure it fit properly, and you're probably looking at the massive mistake that I made here. But I don't know how I didn't see this while recording these videos. I completely forgot to take the masking tape out of the inside of the van. So when I glued the wooden frame in place, it was only glued to this masking tape, which is terrible. So I stripped it all off, cleaned the area, took off the masking tape, put another bead of Sikaflex around our wooden frame, and then reclamped this in place. And thankfully I caught that massive mistake early on, because otherwise our window would have only been held by masking tape. Then I used the Sika activator, which will help the Sikaflex that we're using stick to the metal panel for a much stronger bond. And as you can see, I've masking taped as tight as I could to the window so I can have a nice clean seal. Fit the window in and use the brackets that I was talking about earlier to sandwich our window and the wooden frame to the metal panel of the van, which will cause the Sikaflex to ooze out. And don't worry, this is exactly what you want. You can clean this up afterwards. Hand tighten all the screws and we can start cleaning up the area by using some soapy water, spraying it all around the window, and then spray a little bit on your finger and then run your finger all along the edge. You don't have to do this part, but I wanted a nice clean seal that you wouldn't notice. Now finally, the moment of truth, taking all of the clamps off so that the window can stand on its own for the first time without any sort of support. And I'm absolutely buzzing with how that looks. I took off all of the plastic on the window, and if you get any sort of sealant on the window itself, you can easily clean that up with a bit of methylated spirit and a clean cloth. And I'm absolutely doing a cringe edit of this window as well, so here it is. Oh yeah, lads, look at this. We have a bedroom window in Morrison. Happy days. I am buzzing with how clean the seams and the seals are, but we'll wait for a bit of rain to see if it has any leaks or not. So like I said, it got a little bit sketchy last night, but I am buzzing with how I sealed it. Like, you can't see any of the seals. I had two different colors of the sealant, black or the white, but I just thought that if I used white it would be less noticeable, and that was actually a great shout. So it was black. If I got it on the windows you wouldn't see it, but then if I got it on the van you would see it. Very, very happy with how it looks and how it's all lined up in the van. Everything's parallel. It doesn't look off, it doesn't look crooked or anything. Next job in the van is to put on the fleece. We've already started a little bit of it. That is where we're at. The van is looking well. The wood on the wall has gone in, the window has gone in. But I remember telling you that the main problem with these rivet nuts is that if you tighten them too hard or use too much force to get your bolts in there, that they'll spin in place and dislodge the rivet, and that's what's happened to this one. So if I try and take this out, you'll just keep doing that forever. Like, the rivet at the back, I can feel it, it's spinning. But luckily the only one that's failed out of all of the ones that I've installed is one that I can reach. I'm just gonna grab my pliers. Fucking hell. Okay, there we go. Like, if that was anywhere else, if it was up here, I would have had to use a multi-tool or an angle grinder to cut the bolt off and then cut the rivet off again. Jesus, that is pain. This is probably gonna be one of the easiest jobs that I'm gonna get in this episode anyway, and that's installing the bed beam. I have one of the screws in just to see how it looks. For the bed beams, you don't want to level it using a spirit level or anything like that. You want to use a fixed distance from the floor because you want your bed pretty much parallel to your floor. So for this one, I'm going to use 845 mil, and from the floor is going to be the base of my bracket. And as you can see, I've installed this bracket upside down. Like, they're meant to be like that, but I've seen a lot of people install it upside down with no issues at all. So let's install the other side. Right, they're both at the same height, and these SKORVA brackets are really, really good. They just extend out. You just clip them in there, like that. Oh, there we are. I'm gonna end the video there. Install the bed beam. I'm going to do the other two beams. I feel like I've done a lot in this episode. Yeah, I'll see you in the next one. Good luck.